the sun in Leo, the constellations that are going to be the most easily visible in the night sky are going to be on the opposite end of the circle of the ecliptic, which are Aquarius and Capricorn. So as the sun is going down in the west, the constellations of Capricorn and then Aquarius will be rising in the east. You'll start to see the brightest stars when the sky begins to get a little bit darker toward the end of the period known as civil twilight, which is when the sun is still within about 6 degrees of the horizon. By the time we reach nautical twilight, between 6 and 12 degrees from the horizon, which is a little over an hour after sunset or before sunrise, you should be able to see lots of stars and all of the visible planets. Nautical twilight actually gets its name from the time when sailors had to use the sky to navigate. So about an hour after sunset, if you have a good view to the south, this is the best time of the year to be able to see Scorpio in its entirety. Last year on August 11th, I got this great picture of the entire constellation of Scorpio. To find Scorpio, look for the bright red star Antares, and then follow it to the right and see if you can make out the claws. And of course, the strange thing here is that the two stars that are literally named, the Northern Claw and the Southern Claw, are now considered the primary stars of the constellation Libra. But that's a story for another time. At any time of year, the clearest and brightest constellations are going to be directly opposite of the sun. So in the early part of the night, once nautical twilight begins, that means you'll have to look to the southeast, and you should be able to see the stars that make up the constellation Capricorn. And right now, if you look a little bit to the left and downward toward the horizon, you can see Saturn, which should look like a very bright star. You could use this as a reference, as we already know that Saturn is right now moving through the constellation of Aquarius. If your best view is to the south, like mine, this means you're going to have to wait until much later, closer to 1 a.m., to see these constellations in the sky. The brightest star in the constellation of Capricorn is called Deneb Algete, which is down by what is usually represented as the tail, and I tend to go back to Flamsteed's Atlas of 1776 when I want to look at the figures that artists draw to represent the asterisms that are the constellations. But the stars I use when I'm trying to locate Capricorn are those two little stars that are kind of close together down at the bottom of the tail, here to the right of Deneb Algete. And if you can locate those, you can sort of see that the tail of the Capricorn is kind of like a pentagon, which is, some people believe, the signature of God throughout nature. And then as Aquarius comes up behind Capricorn, you'll see a couple of bright stars, Saddle Melech and Saddle Mood, which Flamsteed draws as the shoulders of the big guy pouring the liquid out of the vessel. The most recognizable feature of Aquarius to me is that asterism on the left, which looks like a kite with a bright star in the middle. I always think of this as a diamond, and even though Flamsteed makes this into the urn or the vessel, I see it more as the man's head, and I think Aquarius kind of looks like a guy running away from or jumping off the sea goat of Capricorn, and then either dumping out the vessel containing the sacred potion or quintessence, or accidentally spilling it as he trips and falls. And who do we know in the public domain right now who has a tendency to trip and fall? So when does the sun actually enter Leo? We can't see the constellation directly right now because anything that's that close to the sun in the sky is completely overpowered by the light of the world. I use 3 different software programs to help me determine when the sun actually transitions from one constellation to the next. The first is an astrology program called Capricorn Prometheus, which is Windows-based, and it gives me the most flexibility to look at a number of different systems and to track the stars over long spans of time. The second is an app called Star Map that I use on my phone, and then the third is the one you see right here, which is called Night Sky, that I use on my iMac, and I like this one because I think it has very nice artwork. But if we take the ecliptic and we make it parallel with the horizontal plane, and then look to see where the sun is estimated to be relative to the positions of the constellations of Cancer and Leo, you can see here that on August 6th at 3 p.m. the sun still looks to be within the realm of Cancer. At least that's the way it looks to me. There is some subjectivity here, and again, the boundaries between constellations are more like overlapping waves on a pond than a clean boundary like the Great Wall of China or our southern border wall. once it's finished. So as the sun moves through these transitional regions, I think we get a dose of energy that's a blending of the two constellations on either side. If we move forward a few days to August 9th, you can see that the sun appears to be exactly in between the westernmost star in Cancer, Messier 67, and the easternmost star in Leo, Ras Elazit Australis. And then a few days later, on August 12th, the sun is clearly under this easternmost star that represents the mouth of the lion. So based on this information, I would estimate that the sun transitions from Cancer to Leo between August 6th and August 12th, with the median date being August 9th. So if you were born before August 9th, you probably got more of a dose of Cancer energy than Leo, even though your tropical astrology chart would tell you that Leo is your sun sign. And Leo is a pretty large constellation, so the sun spends a little more than a month under the lion's influence. It'll move into Virgo around September 15th. And you can see here that on that day, the sun will be a little more underneath the head of the goddess than the rear paw of the lion, the star Denebola. But I think it's important to remember that you are not your sun sign. Neither the position of the sun nor the date on the calendar at the time of your birth determines who you are or how you act. But I do think the positions and movements of those lights up in the sky has at least a little bit of influence on our personalities. When the sun's in Leo, it's the light of the world going through the realm of strength, courage, leadership, and drama. The lion's the king of the jungle, and he knows it. He doesn't need to pick fights, but he's not going to back down from one either. Personally, I think we each have our own unique blend of these qualities in our souls, and we express them in different ways. As the sun goes through Leo each summer, I try to take a little bit of time to focus on that lion-like part of myself and nurture it and help it grow stronger. Sometimes I do this by choosing to do something that's outside my comfort zone. And there are some people on the world stage right now who have displayed characteristics of the lion over the past few years. Strength, courage, leadership. And I think there's a reason in astrology that the lion is considered a symbol of the dramatic. Look at the way it walks. Look at its mane. When a lion walks into the room, people know a lion has walked into the room. So Mercury, the trickster, the messenger of the gods, will go retrograde on August 25th, and it'll pass in front of the sun from our perspective. Mercury is going to be retrograde until September 15th, moving back into the realm of the constellation Leo just as the sun enters Virgo. You might be able to catch a glimpse of Mercury in the morning before sunrise right around September 20th if the sky is clear. Mercury isn't going to exit the realm of the lion until October 1st, and by then it will have spent almost a quarter of this year in this region of the sky. Now, Mercury in Leo is the patron of communication in the realm of courage, leadership, strength, and drama. And as we look back on 2023, we might see that it was a year dominated by communications and discussions and debates about what strength and courage actually mean. I still think Elon Musk is a good example of a trickster-type character on the world stage, and interestingly, he just totally changed Twitter's image with a new logo and a new name. It's now just called X, which is kind of synonymous with over and done with, or existing in the past. But another interesting character in the realm of communication who might be considered a trickster is Tucker Carlson. And there's no doubt he showed some lion-like characteristics by taking a stand behind his principles and getting booted from Fox as a result. And it's kind of interesting that those two trickster-like characters are now connected by the social media platform formerly known as Twitter.
Once things got out of control, for 71 minutes, Pelosi refused to allow you to bring in the National Guard.
If you've been paying attention to the sky, you've probably noticed that you can't see Venus anymore in the west. Venus retrograde began on Sunday, the 23rd of July, and Venus will cross in front of the sun on August 12th. Soon after that, probably within a few days, you should be able to see that bright light known as the MorningStar in the east before sunrise. Venus in the east is sometimes called Phosphorus or Lucifer, and if I were someone who worshipped at the altar of that fallen angel, I might consider this a time of veneration. Now, as a Catholic, I'm not supposed to pay any attention to astrology because it's long been considered a work of the devil by the Roman Empire. And I think that's a deliberate misdirection. The people who want to control you and I don't want us to look at these things because they use these symbols of control on us. They don't want us to see what's behind the curtain. But in a war, it's important that we understand our enemies, and I think people need to wake up and recognize that a lot of these symbols have real power, and they could be used either for good or for evil. If we don't know what the symbols are, and we can't recognize them when they're being deployed against us, then we're doomed. We could easily be manipulated and controlled. But if we can learn about and recognize these symbols and understand both the dark and the light aspects of them, then I don't think they could be used to control us any longer, and I think we might even be able to transmute them when they're being employed to enslave us. And maybe in that way we can take back some of our power and turn that back against our would-be controllers. When I see Venus in the east as the morning star, it reminds me of the story of Lucifer, the one who stood against God the Creator. When Venus, or Lucifer, rises before the true light of the world, the sun, it's a symbol to me of that fallen angel assuming an exalted position. But it doesn't last very long. It's temporary. In a few months, we'll see Lucifer begin to lose power again and fall. And I think this reflects what happens over and over in human civilization. There's a constant ebb and flow between the exaltation of the dark and the light. And right now I think we're living through the fall of a tremendously powerful darkness, and it seems like it's taking a really long time to happen. Certain people are doing everything they can to stop it, but I don't think these cycles can actually be stopped. Eventually the light will return, and in the grand cycle of time, I think it might already be here. So if you were looking up at the western sky after sunset last month, you might have seen Mars and Venus as they got pretty close to one another. I was able to get a pretty decent picture of them on July 4th. Right now Mars is in the constellation of Leo, and this is the warrior, the sacred masculine, Mars, the military, the god of war, moving through the realm of courage and strength. On August 16th, Mars will move into Virgo, which is the realm of preparation, connected with the 6th house where the soul makes its final preparations before coming above the horizon and out into the public. Then right after Halloween, Mars and the Sun and Mercury, the symbols of war, light, and the media, will all move into the constellation of Libra together, which is the realm of balance and justice. Looking a little bit down the road, Mars will go into its biennial retrograde in December of 2024, right after the next presidential election, which might be a little bit interesting. Looking back, Mars was retrograde on November 3rd, 2020, and then also during the midterm elections of 2022. This cycle of Mars retrograde during our elections began with that questionable election in 2020. It was not retrograde on the day of the midterms in 2018. And before that, the last time Mars was retrograde during our elections was 1990, right before George H.W. Bush started talking about all this New World Order stuff.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
So if there was some hidden military coup that took place through those rigged elections in 2020, and then that trend continued to some degree with the greatly anticipated and fairly disappointing big red wave of 2022, then those events would have lined up with a backwards moving symbol of war in the sky. In 2024, Mars won't go retrograde until after the election, if the election does indeed take place on schedule. The timing seems pretty interesting. In any event, I think it's going to be pretty fun to see how things unfold. Jupiter and Saturn aren't really doing much different these days, as they are the two slowest moving visible planets. But just to review, Jupiter right now is going through Aries, approaching that invisible symbol of revolutionary change.
You promised a move, but I preferred
Uranus, which is already in the realm of Taurus, the Garden of Eden in the sky, representing the fixed Earth. And Jupiter being in Aries right now seems to correspond with Donald Trump having been under a lot of fire from the corporate oligarchy and the dying administrative state. But it seems that with every attack, he just keeps getting stronger.
More evidence tonight that the Republican Party truly is Donald Trump's party. New Siena College New York Times polling that shows Republican voters favoring him by 54 to 17% over his nearest rival, Ron DeSantis.
there were 26 different demographic groups that got broken down. You know how many of those groups Donald Trump didn't lead amongst?
No.
0. He led in every single...
These were just Republican voters.
Just Republican voters, right?
And nationwide.
Correct. Nationwide, Republican voters. He led in all 26 groups.
If the field were to winnow, well, what would the data show?
If, in fact, you eliminated all the other candidates besides Ron DeSantis, and it's just a matchup between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, guess who wins?
Let me guess.
Donald Trump.
Jupiter's going to be in Aries until next April, and it'll finally catch up to Uranus at that point, and they'll both transition into the realm of Taurus together. Symbolically, to me, this looks like some type of revolutionary change to be led by a larger-than-life, charismatic personality, perhaps the Commander-in-Chief himself, Donald J. Trump. The goal seems to be the complete eradication of this shadowy thing known as the deep state cabal, and then the restoration of the founding principles of our republic. But in order for this to happen, enough people have to wake up and contribute to that vision. Saturn, of course, will be wandering around in Aquarius, the realm of dissemination of information, until February of 2025. And this kind of seems reflective of that strange Biden family wandering around the White House. Seems like every week more information is being disseminated about their shady dealings and corruption, and maybe soon we'll see a complete truth making its way into the public awareness. After February of 2025, Saturn is going to move into Pisces, and hopefully this will correspond nicely with the final dissolution of this deep state cabal back into the void. So that's it for this patriotic sidereal astrology forecast. I hope you found this information uplifting and entertaining. If you like this video and you want to see more, please give me a rumble, hit like and subscribe if you're finding me on YouTube, and don't forget to share with your friends. As always, I hope you're able to get outside this month, look up to the sky, and verify for yourself where those stars actually are. My name's Jerry D, and I'll see you again when the sun moves into Virgo.